Longhorn Nation, I have some really good news and some really bad news on a personal level. The really good news is Bijan Robinson was drafted. He just wasn't drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles. The really bad news is Bijan Robinson was drafted. He just wasn't drafted to the Dallas Cowboys.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked on Longhorns is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. On today's episode of Locked on Longhorns, we're talking Bijan Robinson to the Atlanta Falcons. Then we're talking about Rodney Terry and this Texas men's basketball team. This week alone, he has received commitments from Kadin, Shedrick, and Max Abmas in the transfer portal, and also got Dylan Disu to return for his last year of eligibility at the 40 acres. And last but not least, the Texas baseball team has been on a shaky stretch of late. They face off against a really good TCU team this weekend. All of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to do something a little bit different on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. For my audio listeners, business as usual. This will be one full episode. You have nothing to worry about. For my YouTube watchers, this episode will be split into two different videos, both dropping today, Friday, April 28th. The reason for that is a lot of times the first segment and the title will dictate the conversation in the comments. And I think we need to have a conversation and celebrate Bijan Robinson for making it to the NFL. But I also think that bringing in the current active points leader in college basketball and Max Abmas to your basketball team is a huge deal as well. And I feel like if I put that as the second segment after Bijan Robinson getting drafted, it won't get the love it deserves. So two separate videos, the first one about Bijan, the second one about the basketball team and the baseball team, both dropping today, Friday, April 28th. And now let's talk about the newest member of the Atlanta Falcons, Bijan Robinson, the first offensive player drafted in the first round from the University of Texas since Vince Young went to the Tennessee Titans. Sounds crazy, but it is true. And I'm so glad that the Atlanta Falcons didn't overthink this. Hell, I'm glad the NFL didn't overthink it because we saw two running backs go in the top 12 before any tight ends or wide receivers this year. But I'm so glad that the Atlanta Falcons didn't overthink it because we've heard for so long that the running back position is overvalued, right? Or running backs don't matter, right? You're better off getting a shameless plug, Roschon Johnson in the third or fourth round than using first round draft capital on a Bijan Robinson or a Jahmyr Gibbs. But we knew that Bijan Robinson was one of the five best players in the draft. I think inarguably, right? I'm not Mel Kiper, I'm not Todd McShay, but if I had to do a big board really quick off the top of my head, I'd probably go Bryce Young, number one, Jalen Carter, we're just talking on the field, he's a dog, Will Anderson, number three, and then Bijan Robinson, number four, right? So we knew he was one of the five best players in the draft, but we didn't know where he would get drafted because of this running backs don't matter and running backs are overvalued stigma / mantra that's been in the National Football League for, I guess, the last 5 years now, right? And I can't necessarily argue with it because we've seen instances of the Patriots winning Super Bowls with running backs you never heard of, right? Fourth, fifth round picks at that position. We just saw the Chiefs win a Super Bowl with the seventh round starter at that position, Isaiah Pacheco from Rutgers, while their first round running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, was a healthy scratch, right? We've seen instances of players like Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell get a huge second contract at the running back position and all get cut during their second contract, right? So I understand the argument that the running back position has been devalued. But what I don't understand is passing on a special football player to take a lesser player because it's a more important position. Why would I pass on Bijan Robinson, a possible generational talent at that position, to take the second or third best corner, or to take the second or third best offensive lineman, or to take the fourth or fifth best edge rusher? That doesn't make sense to me, and I'm glad it didn't make sense to the Atlanta Falcons. And they are getting a superstar that does everything at an elite level on the offensive side of the ball. When you talk about being able to run inside the tackles, he can do that at an elite level. Being able to run outside the tackles in space, he can do that at an elite level. Obviously, his superpower is being able to make people miss, right? Whether it's the spin move, the juke move, the stiff arm, being able to make people miss in a phone booth. I can't remember if it was Brennan Marion or Tashard Choice that said he had the best hands on the team, right? But that's a hell of a compliment for a running back. When you talk about, his pass blocking, he's not a lead at that yet, but it's definitely, when you talk about Bijan Robinson's character and his makeup, I feel like within the next few years, he'll be elite at pass blocking in the NFL. And everything you can say about him on the field, I think you can say twofold about him being off the field. And I think he's going to be a hell of a leader and somebody that's just going to be a really good asset to that community in Atlanta, Georgia. And he's going to a really good spot with the Atlanta Falcons because Arthur Smith is somebody that wants to lean on that power run game with multiple tight ends, right? And that's kind of what he just came from at the University of Texas. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator and play caller with the Tennessee Titans when Derrick Henry started to really go on that run and started to be kind of unquestionably the best running back in the NFL, right? Now, I don't think that you can use Bijan Robinson in the way that you use Derrick Henry, nor do I think that would be smart, right? I think you need to use Bijan Robinson in the way that kind of, highlights his explosiveness, right? I would give him 20 to 23 touches a game, and I'd probably give him half those touches in the receiving game, right? I would probably make sure Bijan Robinson every year, if he's not 100 reception type of running back, he's close to it. I think you need to use him in that Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara type role to really preserve his body. If you want to make this top 10 pick on Bijan Robinson an investment, then you need to do your part to make sure that he has the ability to stay healthy for the next 10 to 15 years at that position. And they take 200 to 300 hits a year. So that's hard to do. And using him like Derrick Henry probably isn't the best way to do that. But if you can get him 10 to 15 carries a game and then get him 7 to 8 catches a game, I think that's the best way to use Bijan Robinson. And when you talk about not only what he's going to do on the field for that team, right? This is a team that does not have a lot of talent right now. And so I think he comes in right away and somebody that you can lean on in the running game. But I also think he comes in right away and he's the face of the franchise, right? When Desmond Ridder is your quarterback, I think Bijan Robinson is going to be the face of the franchise and somebody they're going to lean on a lot because they do have Kyle Pitts at tight end. They have Drake London at wide receiver. They have AJ Terrell at corner. But outside of that, there's not a lot of talent on this football team. They're still in that rebuilding phase. And so you bring in a player like Bijan Robinson who helps you start to win games on the field, but also helps you set your culture in the locker room off the field. And what we know about Bijan Robinson, watching him over the last few years, is he is the type of person that helps set your culture on the football team. He's the type of person to be first in, the last one out, to go 100% in every rep, whether it's in practice or in the actual game. And you just can't find anybody that has anything bad to say about Bijan Robinson. He's going to be an extension of the coaching staff, and he's going to be a leader to everybody on that football team. And if they start to win games at a high clip over the next few years, I think one of the biggest reasons for that is them taking a chance in the running backs don't matter world in 2023 and drafting Bijan Robinson, one of the 5 best players in this draft, at number 8. So I'm extremely excited for Bijan. Congratulations to the Atlanta Falcons on getting one of the best players in the draft. And also congratulations to the Atlanta Falcons on significantly improving your fan base last night, because there's a lot of people in Austin, Texas. There's a lot of Longhorn fans that didn't have much of an affinity or a connection to the NFL that definitely will be rooting for the Atlanta Falcons. And I used to live 45 minutes from Atlanta, so I've always kind of supported the Falcons, even when they were blowing a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. But now I have another reason to root for Atlanta and Bijan Robinson. I'm so excited for him, so excited that he's fulfilled his dream of making it to the National Football League. And now I can't wait to watch him dominate on Sundays after watching him dominate on Saturdays for the last 3 years.